I'm Nathan Grant. I'm the co-chair of the Marion County Democratic Committee, I'm representing myself. I want to speak to you about single delegate districts. I think I should move in the wrong direction. In essence, that would take representation away from me. People in Harrison County, people in Montague County, people in Marion County, people in Kanawha County, people that have non-member delegate districts. I like knowing that when I have an issue, I can go to 4 people instead of 1. And it is fair, because it's based on population. The counties with more population have more representation. That's the way that it was meant to be, that's the way that it's been for years. And I would encourage you to take that into consideration, because the other side wants to make it about winning elections. They're doing it for partisan reasons. They're putting their party representation, they're putting their party interests above the interest of representing the people. And I think that's wrong.
Thank you. I'm trying to make as many as I could. I got up early so I could be here. First, let me, those of you who are in attendance, not our people a little bit, lots of new things to say. First, I'm a strong supporter of single-member districts. It is not Democrat versus Republican. I'm a member of the Kanawha County Democratic Executive Committee, and I've been pushing for 30 years for single-member districts. We got rid of 2-member districts in my ward. I drafted the initiative that got on the ballot back in 1983. We swept away the old charter provision, which allowed 2-member wards, and we had like 4 2-member wards and 2 1-member wards. It is not about Republicans versus Democrats. West Virginia, next to New Hampshire, is the most backward state in the country as it relates to single-member districts versus multi-member districts. But New Hampshire does have an excuse. It has a lower house of 400 members. So if you actually had single-member districts, when you have about 3,100 people per, I would guess the precincts are bigger than that in West Virginia. So states that have fewer than 400 people in the lower house, West Virginia is the most backward state in the whole country. And I'm trying to bring an end to this terrible system. I live in the 7-member district, District 30. And I want the whole state, from the eastern panhandle to Mercer County to the northern panhandle, 100 single-member districts. And I'm working on it. I am working in my house. I'm going to come up with a plan. I've got a sponsor in the house to divide the state into 100 single-member districts. 19 I've got done, these subject to tweaking, about 81 to go. But I'm working on it. So the folks in West Virginia will have the opportunity to see what a single-member district would look like. And one of the problems we have in Kanawha County is that the people live in cities, and usually in the affluent neighborhoods, that's where you have the concentration of people. People in the other parts of the county don't have people in their neighborhoods. We need to do away with having 3 people living the same within a mile of each other and all representing a whole county, when people in the other part of the county don't have anybody there. The rest of the country has understood that. Over 40 states have single-member districts solo. And I've heard some very weird arguments. Me and the State Democratic Executive Committee, a delegate said, well, the state constitution says they have to, you have 4 from this and 5 from that. It doesn't say they're to be elected at large. It says the number you get is based on your population. It doesn't say they're to be elected at large. The apportionment in the U.S. Congress is also based on the total numbers, but it doesn't mean you're elected at large. You split the state up into single congressional districts. So, I understand that the House of Delegates doesn't want to have these hearings. So, I'll be coming to the Senate meetings, the Senate Redistricting meetings, and pushing the House of Delegates plan I'm talking about, because of the failure of the House of Delegates to do what the state senators do. This is not leadership by the House of Delegates. It's perpetuation of incumbents. That's my opinion. It's not Democrat versus Republican. I can assure you that in my single-member district plans, you have Republicans running. You'll have Republican incumbents in the House of Delegates if they choose to both run for re-election. They will have to run against each other too. It is not Democrat versus Republican. That's the way to do it. Another argument was made was that it was going to somehow affect women adversely. If you've got over 40 states in the country that have single-member districts, then you can look at the states that have participation by women in the legislature, you will find the overwhelming majority of those that are ahead of us had single-member districts. Now, the next thing I'd like to get to is congressional districts. I have submitted 3 plans, and the third plan finally got printed up. I presented the first 2 before. But I'd like to talk about this one, simply because we are supposed to go for absolute numerical equality. It's not only a federal requirement, it's our state constitution, as nearly as practicable, not as practicable, as practicable, 4 syllables. It means as nearly as possible. So that is also true for the state senate. It's in the state constitution. Numbers are the most important thing, not trying to squeeze or stretch a county to try to have 2 senators. But with respect to the third plan, that absolute numerical equality, which is what you're supposed to go for, I want to show you how close I am. And it's not a partisan thing. I've submitted different plans that put congressional representatives in different districts. By the way, you do not have to live in the congressional district you run in. You just have to live in the state or the congressional district. I run for Congress. Some people think you have to live in the congressional district you're running from. I mean, if I wanted to, I could run for Congress in the 1st congressional district. I have no desire to. The ideal population is 617,665. Under Cooker Plan 3, when I've submitted the other 2, the first district would have 617,778, which is 113 from perfection. The second would have 617,667, which is 2 away from perfection. And the third would have 617,549, which is 116 from perfection. Now, I challenge anybody else in the state to come up with plans that are closer to the ones I have. I'm still trying to improve upon it. I still haven't quite done as well as I did 20 years ago, when the biggest district was only 15 people in the smallest. But anyway, Senator Ungar, I'd like to present the third thing. On state senatorial redistricting, you're supposed to have 109,000. You're not supposed to stretch counties or squeeze them to try to justify having 2 senators either way. Kanawha County is one of the worst. And so what I recommend to Kanawha County, where I'm side, is that we go down from 4 senators to one district that's wholly within Kanawha County, which we elect 2, that would be 109,000. One part of the county, the western part, which would go to Putnam. Putnam has almost exactly 1/34 of the population of the state. The western part of Kanawha County would go to that. We would have a 3rd senator that would be elected from that 2-county district, and then the northeastern quadrant would have a chance to be put in with some of the other counties in the district that Putnam County is currently in, and they would have a shot with no guarantee of electing a 4th senator. What about Marion County, Marion County? If you look at the state constitution, I just thought you all might find this interesting because I don't really want to point this out. The original districts that they came up with in 1872 for the state senate, subject to being changed, said until the senatorial district should be altered by the legislature as herein described, the counties of Hancock, Brooke, and Ohio should constitute the 1st senatorial district. Marshall, Wetzel, and Marion the 2nd. And then you keep going down, I don't want to read all the counties, but it also stated that Preston and Monongalia the 10th. The logical thing, when you do redistricting, is you start from the appendages and you move to the center. The appendages being the eastern panhandle and the northern panhandle. You start from the top, you get the first 109,000, you make more preserved community interest, which is what I did. So I said and I'm not going to go to the eastern panhandle because this is we're in Marion County. But you start at the top. So you have Hancock, Brooke, Ohio, and part of Marshall. And then the next district would be part of Marshall, all of Wetzel, Tyler, and I get portions of Monongalia and Merritt, which are already also portions of that district. But instead of keeping Monongalia into 3 senatorial districts, what I suggest is you combine Monongalia and Preston. There's another point I'd like to make. I've been doing this for 30 years. But don't cut up little counties and don't cut up little counties. If a county has fewer people than 1/34 of the population in the state, don't cut the county up unless there's no other way to do it. Now, exception is Marshall, because there's no other way to do it. You have to cut up Marshall because of just the fact that there's no other way of doing it. But generally, you shouldn't be splitting counties like Wayne, which have less than 1/34 of the state population. But Monongalia and Preston together, put all of Preston and the rest of Monongalia to the point that you get 109,000, and put the remainder of Monongalia in with the current second senatorials. Already part of that district is in there, but you wouldn't have three. Okay, you wouldn't have three different districts that are staying in Monongalia. Marion, what I suggest is moving the boundary line of the second senatorial districts to the east, and basically making some other changes, which are more specifically described in my plan. But one of the difficulties when you do redistricting is that when you're talking about the appendages, the northern and eastern panhandle, if you, from where Senator Clinton lived, you live in Wellsburg. So if you pick Wheeler, okay. So if you look from the perspective of the northern panhandle, and you try to find the 617,000 people who are closest to the northern panhandle and draw a circle. And then if you start from where Senator Under lives, and also Jefferson County, and you pick the 617,000 that are closest to that, the two circles intersect. And that's because of the proximity, even though people think the northern and eastern are terrible, if we had panhandles on the opposite sides of the state, it'd be very easy. You could say, well, clearly you shouldn't have people, in a district of both. But, sometimes it's logical to put both panhandles. Sometimes it is logical to put both panhandles in, and that particular plan that I was stating would do that. I'm not sure that that's why. I kind of like to have one panhandle in one district and one in the other district. But the difficulty is if you can't, you basically are given some hard choices. My opinion is that you don't worry about incumbent protection. Look at the state constitution. The state constitution, both on congressional redistricting and on state senatorial redistricting, you were supposed to approach numerical equality, with the understanding from the fact that the Baker v. Carr decision says one person, one vote, even goes beyond keeping Senate district lines. But when you look at the plan that I'm submitting for the district state Senate, which you should have next week or two after I've called up the precincts up so the numbers match, you will see that I will cut up fewer counties than the other plans that are for you. So I hope that I commend Senator Under and all of you on the committee for conducting these hearings. But what we need to do is to move out of the 20th century into the 21st and not try to protect the incumbents.
I believe everyone can hear me. I'm Kelly Palmer, Chairman of the Monongalia County Democratic Executive Committee. I'll be very brief in my comments. Once again, thank you to the Redistricting Committee to take their time and the effort to go around and hear the people's voice. The Monongalia County Democratic Executive Committee is opposed to single-member districts. Briefly, we feel that not only does it cost expense to our county, but we're also concerned about the quality of representation. I understand that people in certain areas would like to be represented by their neighbor or someone, but is there a willingness in those areas for someone to serve, and would we best be serving the people with the highest quality and the best representation that we can offer them? So thank you again.